A huge welcome to the podcast, Kirti. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great, Kim. Thank you. And thanks for having me.
No, I'm so excited to chat with you today. I often get a lot of people on this podcast that I know really well. You're someone who I met recently, and so I'm really, really excited to dive deeper into your background and yeah, how you got to where you are today. So I'm really looking forward to this chat.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. I've been really excited. And yeah, it was amazing meeting you at Codebar Festival. Um, yeah, it was like a last minute thing as well, because I know you guys had a ton of cancellations. We were on the wait list. We almost didn't meet, which I was looking back, I was thinking about it this morning. I was like, oh, that would have been a real shame.
Yeah, yeah, it would have. And the way that worked out, being able to get a spot and then come. So yeah, I'm so glad. And yeah, I got to meet you on the day, which is so lovely. So let's talk about what you're doing today. I know that you recently finished the Makers Bootcamp in March. So I guess let's take you back before the bootcamp, because I do want to talk about life after the bootcamp, but I think let's start earlier on. Before the bootcamp, what was it that you were doing?
So just before the boot camp, I was a consultant for technology business management, which is this very niche area of finance for typically like very big enterprises, so Fortune 500 and upwards. And it was a little bit of even though it has technology in the name, I was not doing any coding or anything like that. It was more of a finance data analyst role. And we use a tool called Apptio, which is effectively like a low code tool, which is and it under the hood a lot of SQL, and then you like drag and drop and make models. So really interesting, and quite a nice intro into thinking in a coding sort of way. So I was doing that for about 4 years, and actually that's when I was really starting to kind of flex my architectural build muscles a little bit more. And from there, and me and my partner would often talk about this stuff because, looking over my shoulder, we both work from home sometimes, and and it was really great to kind of get into the weeds of stuff with him. And he understands, like he's a software developer, so he would have like a much deeper technical understanding of what was potentially going on under the hood. But it was really great to just like bounce stuff around with him. And that's when he was like, oh, like you kind of have this coding mindset, like maybe that's something that you'd be interested in. And I kind of didn't really like take it very seriously because it wasn't the first time somebody had said to me, "Oh, you should just like learn to code." But and when I'd heard this, I was like, I don't know. So it kind of immediately like water off a duck's back, not in a good way, but like you're just like I would just almost dismiss it because I'd never seen myself in that role. It always felt like something that was like for other people, not for me. And but just maybe a little bit of like helpful context before that, I was in banking and operations. So again, very much like this, pretty like technical in its own way, but nothing to do with code. So I'd spent 8 years, 8 months, much longer than that, 8 years in banking, and been like doing a lot of like Excel, maybe a bit of like Visio here and there, and Visual Basic, and getting into like a lot of these tools that are typically in enterprise suites, but like never actually learning to code. And it just really never felt like that was ever going to be in my path. I never had that in my like as in a plan of like where I was going to go. And in fact, the reason that I did the boot camp in the end was like out of sheer necessity, because as we've had a chat about a bit already, is that Tim and I are working on a product. So we've got a little side hustle going on, and we're building it. It's a tool for enterprise teams, operational workflow. So it's born out of my experience, and it's been like really cool to kind of to begin ideating on that with Tim, my partner, and work on that. But Tim's the one who's been doing all the work on it. He's the one he can build. And he was doing all of the software development side of things, and I was doing the product management and the business kind of business reach out, the non-technical stuff, still really important, but basically got to a point where we were like, we need more hands on deck with the coding side of things. So that's where I was like, oh, actually, I'm going to have to take this seriously and actually go to school and learn how to code. So yeah, that's how I ended up in boot camp.
There is so much that you just said that I'm like, right, I want to dig into that. So thank you so much for that, like, really like clear, like, journey that you went through. What I kind of want to start by, I think it's really nice that you had this exposure to, actually coding, because things like Visual Basic is coding, and it sounds like you had this really nice, like, kind of slow over several years. You said 8 years and stuff to code before you then realized actually now this is something that I kind of need to know. And yeah, I think that's really fascinating. It's not quite typical. Some people go, oh, you know what, I want to learn to code having never seen it before. But it sounds like you had this really nice like exposure with kind of also not really realizing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that was when you're in that mode where you're just trying to get something done, you're not really thinking about it as like oh, I'm a software developer, because I get from my personal experience, or like how I was feeling about it, it was that block, that one I mentioned of like, it's just not meant for me. Like in the bank, the software, the devs sat in their dark corner coding. We'd like never cross paths. So it was just you get exposed to it, but also I think there's like what I needed personally for me, and I'm a little bit like this. So not for this wouldn't be for everybody, but I do kind of need that permission slip when I'm taking that big leap forward, because I just had always a view that I was a certain thing, but not the coder. So actually, getting into boot camp and and there was a lot of imposter syndrome that came with that. We could absolutely get into that in a little bit more detail. But yeah, it was just like, oh, yeah, no, I'm like, actually, there's nothing scary about being a software developer. It's actually really fun. But yeah, 100%. It was those like little like dipping the toes in the water and just understanding that this is you putting input into a machine and getting an output, and it being a controlled output. And that like is phenomenal, like a phenomenal feeling. I know you've spoken before about your experience with, I think, what was it, Flash when you were a kid? And
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
just like,
yeah.
yeah, I completely feel that. Like it's like you're to actually be able to direct a computer, a machine to do a thing, and then have that be repeatable, like game changer.
It's magic. It's magic. It's so magic. And I think something you said it, and I think it's why representation is so important, because you mentioned about like the developers being in the dark, like in the corner in the dark, and it immediately took me back to my one of my jobs where the developers were downstairs, like in the basement with like no windows, and we were so separate from everything else. And I think it must have been so weird for people to look at us and go and a bit like that, like from the outsiders, like, why are they down there in the dark? Like, we literally had no windows, and like, we were a team of six, so it was quite a small team. But yeah, we were downstairs in the dark with no windows.
Don't know why they would do that to devs. They need sunlight too.
I know, but that's why I like having these conversations, because I think it's so important to say that, like, no, that's not how every developer works. Like, not every developer wants to be, really high on caffeine, or, like, because there's so many people I meet that go, I have to function without caffeine. And I haven't had caffeine for 8 years. I gave it up because I've got high blood pressure. And I think that's actually why, these conversations I think are so important to show that actually, like, no, no, not every developer is like that. Like, we do like sunlight. We do like to talk to people. Not all of us just survive off like caffeine and Red Bull.
Yeah, exactly. A bowl of cereal.
Yeah, it's like, I actually like also cooking and eating good food.
Yeah, exactly.
you
Real,
know.
there's a real range.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, like I said, that's why I think these conversations are so important.
Mhm.
So you said you then did makers out of necessity.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why just doing a boot camp for you was like the only option? Because obviously for me that I think there are so many options to becoming a developer, like you could have gone down the self-taught route, you could have done an apprenticeship, obviously maybe a bit difficult because you're building your own thing, but is there a particular reason why boot camp was the answer for you?
Yeah, that is a great question because I've been thinking about that actually on the back of listening to some of the wonderful codebar story episodes in the past. And it's been incredible to hear how some of the people that you've had on the podcast have been able to self-teach and like do it like they're basically create their own curriculum and go off of their own steam and learn and like not have to like turn up for roll call at 9:30 and like I have to be at classroom and but just do it and actually wake up and do the thing and some of the people that you've had on have been doing it alongside work. I am just not that person. I know my limitations. I needed that structure. I needed to turn up, have a teacher wait like makers they take this really seriously, which is fantastic as part of their well-being. They want to make sure everybody's safe. So if you don't turn up, they will be like, "Where are you?" And then if you don't like to, and if you don't answer, they'll call the person, your contact person that they have on file to make sure that you're okay. And so it's like you really have to turn up and let them know like if you're going to be off and stuff like that. So that structured like being at school vibes really gave me what I needed to like power through. And also being around peers that are going through the same journey was also super powerful for me because I think it can be so lonely to do this by yourself and it's so hard. Oh my gosh, like as it goes, not to scare anyone that's like looking through this journey, but at points like anything, when you're learning something and you're at the beginning, it's like peaks and troughs, and you go through this like trough of despair sometimes. And at that point, that's where I was like, I really needed the people that I was working with around me to kind of keep me going and be able to talk to a coach and say, hey, I am feeling at some points I did have like a real like heart to heart with them and I was like, I feel like I'm not moving as quickly as my peers because some of the we all came in at different levels as well. So this is kind of like another angle to it that maybe also created a bit of a challenge in boot camp is people you're coming in at a certain level and some people naturally are going to have been doing more, they're going to have done personal projects, they're going to have more experience with maybe other code bases. So we were all at varying levels, but you're all coming in and you're expected to do the work at pretty much the same pace and get the assignments done and then do group projects and do pair coding and just having to the makers coaches there to be able to say, hey, don't worry, you've got this, because they've built the course for absolute beginners. So it's not like they're expecting people to come in and act at an intermediary level, but it just, you know what it is when you're like in a classroom and somebody just, you can just tell they've got innate knowledge about something, like they're just further along, which is fantastic as well, because you can like see how they think and they bring their experience to the table. But it's hard not to compare yourself to that level which you can't like walk before like run before you can walk, yeah, and you have to take it in steps. So yeah, it was like that support, it was from all these different angles, yeah, really helpful for just getting me to turn up and do the thing basically.
Yeah, and I remember having someone on my uni course that was like, I felt like they were so much better than like everybody else. And I was like, have you been doing this for like 10 years already? And then I just remember thinking, I want to be friends with this person so they can help me.
That is a brilliant strategy.
Because I was like, I think I'm going to need him like for the next 3 years.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's the great thing as well. It's just like you have these people who are better than you, and that's where you want to be. You always want to be in the rooms where you are a little bit like in your like hand in like head in hand imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
but you want to be around people that will like level you up, which is fantastic.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you touched on something really nice as well, which is the kind of the well-being support that you get at Makers. I've spoken to quite a lot of people that have gone through Makers, and I know definitely over the last couple of years is something that they've actually really focused on a lot more because like you said, it is difficult. It is really challenging. It's intense. You're doing a lot in actually a really short space of time, and actually having that support from the coaches at Makers, but also the peers that you're learning from is so important. And yeah, I've heard lots of positive things about that, particularly like I say, because I know it's something that they focused on over the last couple of years, which, like you said, is so important when you're going through that journey there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you feel it, and it does make it feel really real and like a little bit like work as well. Like you would have to turn up for work, and like you've got to be like a certain level of professionalism. But it wasn't like it from that angle at all. It was that like, hey, like we just need to make sure that you are safe and this is
Yeah.
okay.
And because it is also a commitment, it is a huge commitment. Yeah, I think checking in that people are okay, like you say, coming it from that angle is, really, really, important. So I know you finished the boot camp in March. You've kind of touched on it a little bit, and I don't know how much you're allowed to talk about this product that you're building but it sounds so, so exciting. Like, is there anything you can tell us about it?
Of course. So the product is as I mentioned a little bit before, it's this born out of my experience in operations. So for many years, I've been doing the manual line work in these big companies. So the tool is a workflow tool to help support those teams that are doing that manual work. Very much designed for them in mind and the type of workflows that they have and the type of timelines that they work to as well. And we found that there really is there are lots of workflow tools in the market. So I can imagine if we ever find ourselves in a VC room, they might like raise an eyebrow and be like, yet another workflow tool. But we genuinely feel that this is something that is not been really thought about in a great level of detail. And maybe because often the people that are building software products have typically been in software development roles. And and maybe it's a blessing in disguise that I never really took myself seriously as a coder. If anybody who's listening, I did like the air quotation marks because, of course, that's just how I was perceiving things. But yeah, maybe it was a say blessing in disguise because I continue to do that line work and really see all these different teams throughout my experience. I say investment banking to start with, but then as a consultant in technology business management, I've had the privilege of being able to dive into several different companies for periods of time. So a couple of companies in consumer goods, investment houses, which is a little bit, yeah, they're slightly smaller to the investment bank that I was working at before. So it's been a really nice mixture of all these different places and all these different teams. And as much as all enterprises think that they're snowflakes, they are pretty standard when you start to really get under the hood of what all of these teams are doing. And the fact is that it's all still being done in a really, really manual way. And there is a sense of like a real attempt at control, but it's really, really hard to do this stuff without a dedicated product, without a dedicated workflow tool that's built to spec for their needs, which is what I think that's the area, the angle of the market that we are going to be going after and we are building for. So we're going to start off very niche and kind of go into the areas that I'm familiar with, but then hopefully be able to prove out that the work is with this, the tool is broad enough that it can effectively be applied to any manual recurring workflow process and effectively just help the teams bring a level of control so the teams know what they need to do, when they need to do it, in which order, who's working on what, and then from there be able to build out automation, because of course that's the world we live in now with the beautiful advent of AI. We everybody's thinking about this stuff, and it's about kind of coming up with the right sustainable tools or the right sustainable approaches that are going to actually like stand the test of time and do what these enterprises need to do in that controlled way, because they are rightly so very cautious as well. So it's got to be a quality approach that means that they can get the output that they're needing to get every single time, which yeah, it's going to be an interesting challenge, but that's what we are. We're in MVP stage, doing a pilot hopefully with a company soon. That one I can't talk about, but yeah, so it's exciting, and it's been a really interesting journey, and I think without bootcamp it would just be far too difficult. Yeah, looking back on it, I'm like, I can't believe it. Just in general, I can't believe it took me so long to just learn to code, because now that I've learned, even without the business involved, I'm like, wow, this is incredible. Like, it's so cool to know like how it works.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And I think what's really, really wonderful about your story is that, you're a career switcher, you're now
Mm.
coding, but all that experience that you've had before and knowledge you've brought with you, and I think that's something that's really worth highlighting, because I know that can often be sometimes a fear for a lot of people who are, are career switching, that, they go, oh, all that before, is irrelevant and it doesn't matter now. And I'm kind of starting from scratch. But actually, you're really not. You're bringing so much experience, so much knowledge. And I think that's actually the most wonderful thing about your journey, is that all that work and time that you spent before, you have brought it with you. And that's it's also given you the idea for this product that you're now building. And I think that's so exciting to for that transition to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that point, because it's so key, I think, when we see people who are coming from all these different backgrounds. And in fact, at Codebar Festival, that's what I loved. One of the best things about it was chatting to the attendees at the festival, and hearing about people who are coming from different backgrounds. You can just tell that that they have a unique perspective. They're bringing something with them, with their story, even though they might not even realize that they're doing that. There is that kind of understanding of, oh, okay, well, I used to do this role and then I switched over to this role. And there was almost like it's you, like you were talking about earlier, representation, where you not every software developer is that standard archetype of, okay, they did computer science and then they got a job in tech, and the rest is history, which is fantastic. We absolutely need all the people doing computer science, because they really understand it at that like algorithmic level, the super, like being able to do super complex modeling. All of that stuff is so important, but it is like it takes that like that mix takes to make it all come together. I think it's like people coming from these different backgrounds, bringing that experience and bringing those different skill sets into a team. I think, yeah, it just makes for really strong teams.
And that knowledge is so powerful. You can't, all that experience that you've got before, you can't buy that at a boot camp. That's from the years and years of, working, like you say, in companies and then consultancy. Like that knowledge is just so, so powerful. So if anyone's listening and who is maybe thinking of doing that career switch, what advice would you have for them?
Oh, yeah, great question. Okay, so I will actually bring in part of the question that you'd asked earlier, and I never actually answered it, which was about apprentices. Because most of the guys on my boot campus, the people on my boot camp were apprentices. I was one of the few self-funded people, which is a very big privilege to be able to self-fund. So I know that's not going to be for everybody. But actually, if I was career switching and I wasn't going down this very like very specific route of like, I just need to learn the software development so I can start building the product or helping to build the product, I would have done the apprentice program, because you get the boot camp for free and you've got a job at the end of it. Like, it's a brilliant program. I was so impressed. I didn't even know this program existed until I joined the boot camp, and I was just like, "What are you guys, apprentices? What's that?" And yeah, and they were like, it was such a cool, it's such a cool setup because so anybody that doesn't know, you can look for these job applications online, and they will have something like software developer or software engineer apprenticeship, and they'll have like the job spec and the role and like what you're going to be doing and how the salary and typically speaking, they will like give you all that information, and then they'll say we're going to send you off to a boot camp for what the makers one is 16 weeks. So there might be other ones for different times, but I've only seen the job specs for the makers ones. But yeah, you go and you do this, you do the boot camp. You are being paid to be at the boot camp. It's fantastic. And then you go off and you know that you've got a job in lock afterwards as well. And at the boot camp, they will basically, which is great, depending on the language that your team is going to be using in the job that you've secured, they will then like funnel you into the right like tracks on the boot camp. So some of the guys were doing C sharp and some of them were doing JavaScript. I think in the past they've done Ruby, but I don't think they're doing Ruby anymore. But ultimately, you kind of the language is not super important because you'll be just learning the language that you need for the job. And yeah, and it was a really great way for people to both get employment and have that security and get taught on the job. And then when you go into the role, from what the guys were telling me, is then they'll start like giving you that hands-on training as well, so you can understand their code base, so you can understand how they work as a team, and yeah, it feels like a very well thought out, very like well handled program where people can feel like they're not being thrown into the deep end too quickly. So I would say anybody that's thinking of that career switch, definitely have a look at those roles, because it both lets you career switch and get taught on the job, which is yeah, everything you need.
And like you say, get paid as well whilst you're doing it. Because I think that could be the really tricky thing, is to maybe do a 16-week boot camp but not be paid and still have to live in, say, London. So actually, exactly like you said, if you can get into one of those, you do the training, you're guaranteed a job and you get paid. Like that's to me the ideal situation.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And I think it's yeah, like really fantastic that they've come up with this program, and hopefully it will just be more and more of those types of jobs because we do need more and more coders. Like ever since with AI, I know there's like a little bit of question of like, oh, should we still learn to code? Yes, 100% still need to learn how to code. Like AI is great, but it's not going to be like we should not be handing over all of our coding to AI. Yeah,
And
and
the thing is with AI, you still have to understand what it's doing, and that's the conversation that I have so much with, because companies say to me, maybe when I'm talking to them about partnerships or sponsorship, they're like, well, what's AI going to do to teaching people to code? Like, is it changing? And I'm like, yeah, it is changing, but actually, like, yeah, you can tell Claude what to do, or any of these other self-writing AI tools, but you still need to understand it. You still need to understand what it's doing and what it's outputting. So actually, I think the fundamentals of learning to code isn't changing that much. Like, yes, maybe when the further down the line you get it, it's slightly changing. But I think actually at that foundation level, it's not changing too much because, yeah, you still need to understand what the AI is outputting.
this is it. It's if anything, it will make that journey in, and definitely for me, has made my journey in so much smoother because I could use it like alongside my coaches and makers. I could use it as my one-to-one coach for the quick little questions and just debugging and really kind of digging into what I was doing. But it is like any tool, you have to use it in the right way, and it can't be thinking for you. It can really, really just gives you that ability to really go deep on a topic if you want to, and really get that lay of the land. Or if you're really struggling with a bug, for example, like I can't imagine how many hours prior to AI people would have spent looking at the terminal just going, oh my God, like this is really, really hard to decipher, because sometimes errors on terminals are like not particularly easy to read.
Or the
Um,
hours spent trailing Stack Overflow for the correct answer. Like
yeah.
that to me is like, and it feels so far away now, but actually it wasn't that long ago, you know, but yeah, to me it feels it's such a progression
Yeah.
of
You
it.
guys are like the hardcore coders who have learned that. Yeah, no, that's I think that, but I have to say, as much as I really appreciate AI, and I wouldn't necessarily I'd go so far as to say I would want to be I what would have wanted to learn the way you learned, Kim. But I do think that the way you guys have learned will be it's giving you some insight that we as people learning today, we will just never be able, I don't think we'll have that muscle in the same way that you have it, because you really had to understand how to come up with a solution. Whereas now, that because the AI is really, typically speaking, they really are quite good at architecting. So I am finding that yes, whilst I am really still understanding everything that I am doing line by line, I am not coming up with the designs as much myself. A bit different when I was at Makers because it was very much like, don't use AI, obviously, like because this is, part of something that you are having to show that you have built. This is your own original thought. But yeah, in real life, like that's just the nature of it. You're just gonna have to kind of.
Yeah, and the thing is, if it can also speed up your process, speed up what you're building, you know, rather than being sat there for hours and hours and hours trying to solve this problem, like if you can do it in half an hour to an hour, that's great. You know, it means you can be way more productive than, you know, being sat there for hours, like I say, trying to find the right answer on Stack Overflow to help you, which
Yeah,
was awful.
I can only imagine.
We used to joke at work that I remember once there was a Stack Overflow was down, and we were like, "Oh, well, we may as well all go home now. We can't write code. We can't do our job."
That is hilarious. Yeah, it's a bit like if I worry the day that like my models go down and I'm like, oh my God, I'd have to think for myself. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So I am intrigued. Before we wrap up, I'm really intrigued to know how you find working with your partner, because me and my partner were both software engineers, and I do not think I could work with him. And that's nothing against him. I just think it's nice to like have the separation, and it's nice because, you know, we both understand what each other's doing, but I don't think I could work with him on like a project like you're doing. So I'm just really intrigued to know like how you're finding that whole process.
I feel you. It so because we had a very clear separation of duties at the beginning, it was actually quite easy to have our areas of responsibility, and this person is doing this and this X, Y, Z, and the other person's doing A, B, C. So I think that really helped at the beginning. And I am now just kind of stepping into his territory more, which he's all for. And but I am coming at it from a novice standpoint of I'm writing code, and I'll submit my PR, and then Tim will review it, and he will then give me feedback. So he's basically become my replacement makers coach, if you like. So I think from that aspect, because we are at different levels and have different areas of expertise, even at this point, we it's been quite seamless. I think we have, of course, like anything, like starting a business with any partner, romantic partner or just a friend or anybody else that you're just starting a venture with, you do need that finding your feet with each other and understanding how each of you works. And there will be points where somebody will say something in the wrong tone or cut the other person off, and there's just going to be that friction. And that is just something to you have to in the moment catch it, talk it through, and then smooth it out and not let it fester. Like that's the most important thing. But I actually think being married has like given us the best foundation for that, because I think we're 2.5 years into our marriage and we've known each other for 5 years. So we've had lots of experience of, well, who's going to do the dishes? Who's going to do the reckoning of the
Yeah.
Amex card? Like all of these, like they sound like nothing to do, like that's not business stuff, but the minutiae it is that gritty stuff that happens in a business as well that you need to be able to talk through, figure out who's going to do what, and understand how you can get really good at conflict resolution with each other.
Yeah.
And yeah, so from that standpoint, it's just been pretty smooth, and knock on wood continues to be, and really enjoyable as well because we we have such different perspectives and different ways of thinking that Tim is just this, he's got this incredible mind that just opens me up to these different ways of thinking. And I'm like, oh wow, like that. I did not think about it like that. And he's also like my biggest cheerleader as well. Like not to sound too soppy, but like he was, as I mentioned, the one that was like, you should learn to code. You'll be good at this. And when I was in those like troughs of despair, he was like, don't give up. You've got this. So I think if there's anybody in your life that is like that, a friend, a parent, a partner, those are the people that you like, business aside and all that stuff, but just like keep those people close, especially embarking on a coding journey like this. Having those cheerleaders in your corner are so important because I sometimes you just need somebody to be like, you've got this. And if you don't have that person, then please, if I can be that person for you, I would just like to say, no matter if at those points that you're just feeling really low and you feel like you just want to give up, know that you have this. You absolutely can do it. And it's so within your ability. So if you're listening to this podcast, you're of that mindset already. So it will feel like sometimes you want to give up, but you just, I know it's hard, but just power through it and you'll come out the other side and it will be amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. I think that's such a lovely, lovely way to end. So thank you so much for chatting today. I've loved like digging deeper, finding more out about you, which is so, so lovely. Yeah, just thank you so much for coming today. And hopefully I'll see you again at another Codebar event soon.
Oh, that would be brilliant, Kim. Yeah, I will absolutely be there. I'm now a Code Bar member for life. Really
Yay!
excited to see you guys at some more events. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has been amazing. I really appreciated the opportunity to get to share with you and your audience. And yeah, like if anybody has any questions, yeah, I'll give you can share my details, Kim, if anybody wants to ask me anything about makers or the business journey or anything like that. My DMs are always open. So yeah, I'm here to chat.
Thank you.